I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing so good. I'm so excited for today. I'm so blessed that I get to share you with my community. So I'm going to go
Oh,
on my Facebook so that the women in my group can join us.
wonderful.
I know, it's so exciting.
It is. My heart is like literally pounding out of my chest right now.
I know, I couldn't wait all morning. I was thinking about it last night and I was just like, I just
Me
can't wait.
too. Me too.
Okay, let's see. Hi, Alexis. Hi, Deb. Hi, Karen. Hi, Rhonda. Hi, Tamara. I'm so excited you guys are on. Okay, let's see. Okay, it looks good. Let me just make it quiet. So, hi, Annalisa. Okay, I just love this. I love that we get to play in this magic and miracles in this lifetime. Like, it's really so amazing and it's so fun. And my reading with you was so profound. And I just can't wait to share it. So, before we get started, let's everyone get connected. So, if we can all just take a deep breath and close our eyes and tune into our heart space. And just breathe into your heart and then letting go of all of the energy that is around you. And just allowing yourself to just come into this space and just listen to the answers that are within your heart. As we connect here together as sisters in this sacred space, in this beautiful tribe that we're in, doing this beautiful work that we get to do. We call forth the angelic beings who are here to help us ascend and all of the goddess energy. I call forth Fatima and Goddess Shakti, and you can call forth whoever you desire to be with us also. And we fill this space with love and light. And I say these things in the name of love. Amen.
Amen.
So I love starting that way because I really love sealing the sacred space. So it's just like a heart flow, energy, just kind of conversation. So really my intention for having you join us today was so that I could share you, because I know that what you do is so amazing and profound, and I'd never heard anything like it before. And the way that I found you was so beautiful and synchronistic. So I was really wanting to have another practitioner to come in to this thing that I was creating. And I was like, I love tarot, and I hadn't had a really good tarot reading in a long time. And the last woman I had a tarot card reading with, she was so on point. She was also Wiccan. So it was like I was at a point in time in my life when I needed that really heavy energy to kind of move through. And so this time I was like, I would love to have like an angelic being who is so light and just like in the heart and doing this like a good Glenda the Good Witch. You know what I mean? That's
Love her.
I know, me too. So
I have
that's
a
what I
magnet of
want.
her in my fridge.
Oh, really? That's
Yes.
so cool. That's cool. So that's what I said I wanted. And then I don't even know how I found you. I think I'm friends with your daughter on Instagram, and we're like in the same entrepreneurial circle. And she posted something about you and how you were taking a leap and moving to Mexico. And then she put your 12th house readings on there. So I went on and I read it, and I was like, I feel like this is her, because it was literally like a day after I asked the universe to show me this divine being that turns into you. And so when I went on your page and I started looking at everything, I mean, I booked a session immediately. And then when I actually had my reading, it was the craziest thing, because I know how you do it is sitting down. I'll let you describe exactly what you do. I just want to give my experience so that people can understand. So as I'm listening to you, and I'm outside and I can hear the waterfall in my pool, and you just start talking and talking, and you're saying all this stuff, and it's just like touching every part of me, and I'm like in tears crying. I mean, if you could have seen me, because it was all about, I was like really deciding, do I want to do this feminine course? Do I want to do the Rise of the Sacred Feminine, but feeling the call to do it? And then when you were like boom, boom, boom. I mean, you had no idea. There was no way you could know. Nobody knew at that point in time if I was going to do this or not. So it was like you were just on point with it, and you were so fluid with the way that you were speaking it. And I was like, at one moment I'm like, is she reading this? I want to know what tarot deck she's using. Like, wow, this really is like fitting me to a T. Like, this is the craziest thing. And then right after I thought that, you were like, oh, I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm reading, but I sit down and channel first and write everything out and then read it back. And I was like, oh my God, it really is about me. Like, it really was about me, because it was so good. I mean, you could really do a tarot deck just off that reading, and it would be the most beautiful description ever. So it was just like, it was such a cool reading, and it really was everything. So the reason that I actually love to do these things is because it really gives you an idea of where you are at in life, right? Like within our astrology chart, we have light side, we have shadow side, and some people get caught up in the shadow side of the human condition when really they want to be on the light side, and that's what they came here to do. So using what you do as a tool to be like, look, this is where you are. This is what you said you came here to do. This is what you have to do to get in alignment with that. It's like the most beautiful thing. It's like you're that bridge between having your astrological chart read and then having the tools that you provide that are like, this is where you are and this is what you need to do to move through it. So I really want you to talk about your process, because it just tied everything together, not only for me, but I know for everyone that I sent to you. And then also how we all have the Wands card or whatever it was in there about the rise of the sacred feminine right now at this time. So if you could share your journey, I would love it.
Sure. So would you like for me to talk about my process, or would, how I do go about a reading, or would you? Okay. Well, let's start with process. So when somebody contacts me and we get it scheduled and everything's set to go, I establish kind of a connection with that person. And I think that everything, people are divinely led, and there is synchronicity. And when people reach out for that kind of help, they're making a serious commitment. They're saying, okay, I'm ready for my next step. And I connect with that person, and then I'm with them. I'm in their heart space. I can feel it. I do. And as long as they've made the appointment and they've committed to the time, from that time until they're reading, we're sharing a space together. And so I'm feeling them, I'm asking for guidance, I'm paying attention to what's happening to me. Like I'll see a walking stick instinct on my door, and I'll be, what does that animal symbolize? And that goes into the reading. So it's more than just, an hour reading. It's really a heartfelt connection to guide this person who has been, who has come to me for guidance. So the process is then people send me numbers, and I ask that people meditate on their numbers. That they just don't, like, oh, 7, 8, 9, they're really sitting and they're saying, okay, send me the numbers 1 through 78. 78 is the number of cards in a tarot deck. And then I will put out all the tarot cards and I'll count their numbers. And then I will form the tarot reading based from the tarot. And I'll do the tarot first and then match it to their astrology. And it's a beautiful weaving of the two. Tarot really works messages that need to come to us, and astrology is our cosmic fingerprint. It's when we drew our first breath, it's where the planets were, and it's kind of like this fingerprint that we symbolize. And whenever the planets trigger these points again, we can feel that influence in our lives. So the two tie very nicely together, and I feel so grateful that I can do this kind of work now.
I know. When you sent me that and you're like, hey, what's your birth date? What's your birth time? Where it was like, I was like, wow, this is really in depth. Like, this is really in depth. And I've had my astrology chart read by 2 other astrologists who are big in the industry. Like they're well known. So it was very interesting to see how it was exactly what both of them had said. And then when you come in, it was like exactly, and what yours did for me was really give me the tools to be able to say, okay, look, this is real. Because, you know, we go through life and we're getting these signs and synchronicities, and we know and we want to believe that we're destined for amazing things. And then when you get to this place when you're like asking questions, guide me to someone who can help answer these. And then you come along and then it's like, wow, this is real. Like, this really is real. Like, you do have a birth promise. You did come here to do something amazing. So even when having that and then having your intuitive gifts and abilities and then being able to just give you that reading, it just gave me so much clarity and so much determination to take that big step that I knew I needed to take, and also the strength and confidence to do it, you know?
Absolutely. You know, when people come for a reading, they basically, what I've come to believe is that they want to be seen. They want to be seen, and sometimes they need permission to go through with what they know in their heart of hearts they need to do. And so the tarot and the astrology is a very helpful lens to look through in providing timing information, in providing natural abilities that this person has come into the world with, in providing potential challenges. Now, it's not exact because astrology is a symbolic language.
Yeah.
And, you know, it points to the terrain. It doesn't say, you know,
it's like the essence.
Yeah, it's like the essence, but when you're able to look through that lens, the person who's having the reading, they recognize themselves and they're like, she's pointing me to this, and I know this is the way. I already know this. And so it's oftentimes great confirmation. It's like, thank you for seeing me. Nobody has ever seen me in that way. And it's just such helpful pieces, the astrology and tarot together, to work with on a very deep psychological and spiritual level.
Yeah, for me, it was confirmation, because in my group, what I teach is about deliberate creation. It's about aligning with your soul purpose, listening to your heart, clearing the programs and patternings of life trauma and wounding that's in your way, and getting into alignment with what you came here to do. So I know what my desires are. I have them written down. I chant them. I mantra them. I'm living them, you know, these kind of experiences. So then when you are that deliberate and then you have a reading like what you provide, it confirms it. Not only did it confirm what I had already experienced, what I was experiencing, but what my future desires were to experience too. I mean, you nailed the man that I'm calling in to the T, right? Like, everything on my list was exactly what you said was coming in. And it's not even like it was like, oh, tell me about him. You know, it was just kind of like the whole reading was career and love, which is exactly where I am flourishing right now. So it's just so beautiful and amazing. And I just love it so much. So I also wanted to talk about all the women in my group. This is what I found is the ones, especially the ones that come either do a program with me or work private with me, have very, very big life purposes to be the change, to like use their traumas and transform them to healing power so that they can help other people do the same thing, so that we can all do this kind of ascension together at the same time. So I've been eager to talk to you about the different women that have come to you from my circle, and what you've seen was like the common theme of it, because I know it's exciting.
Yeah, well, so when I did your reading, your signifier card was the Maiden of Wands, also known as the Page of Wands. She kind of looks like you too.
Yeah.
um, and, and and her energy is bold. It's like she wants to change the status quo. She has very youthful energy. She's idealistic. She believes that she can affect change. She's not letting anything hold her back. And her keywords are justice and integrity and spirituality. So she knows that she's here for a purpose, and she's finding her purpose and she's actualizing it. She's not waiting for anybody else. And so the majority, I would say, out of all the people that came to me after our reading that you recommended, there were probably 2 that didn't have her in her chart, but and that's very rare.
Yeah, I know.
It's very rare. So there was a little you in all that. And after this happened like 6 or 7 times, I started thinking, you know what, this is this is not random. So
Yes.
I started mentioning, you know, your work with them and how in the placement of wherever she showed up in their reading, I said, I gave the placement for that and I read for that, but then I also included you and I said, you know what, I think this might be the area that you specifically work with Randina in, you
Yeah.
know, or look to her as an example because because you kept showing up in all these people's readings.
Yeah.
And at the same time as doing other folks that weren't recommended by you and they didn't have the Maiden of Wands in show up in their tarot. So
Yeah.
I thought it was so interesting. I love it.
I love it too, because I have people all the time say, oh my gosh, you were in my dream. I heard your name and I Googled it and then found you. And it's because of a unique name. No one's ever heard it before. I mean, I think
Yeah.
there's maybe like 7 other people in the world, if that have that name. So it's so old. It's like an old Welsh name. And so it's like, wow, like coming to you, my name coming to their dreams. So then it's like, oh my goodness, because I had a session with Tanya Gabrielle she does wealth astronumerology. So she does your astrological birth chart and it's full and it's your wealth code. So she was like, Randina, you have the fire trine in your chart. You were here to pave the way for humanity for the next 2,000 years. So she's like, a lot of people, a lot of women are going to be reaching out to you and they're going to have hearing from you or about you through all these different mediums and dreams and all these things. So when it kept happening, it was like, oh my gosh, you know, maybe this is real. Like maybe I really need to make sure that I'm doing something, you know, to do that. So one of the things that I decided I was going to do for this next course is include a reading with you for everyone who signs up, because it is so important to not only know that you really did come here for such a beautiful purpose, but also have the tools and the confidence and the knowing to fulfill it, you know?
Yeah. You're so progressive in doing that. You know, it's really a progressive idea to gift your students and your clients astrology and a tarot reading, because you can go so much deeper.
It makes it so easy. It's
Yeah,
like, look, it's not just me telling you, you came here for a reason. Like, this is real. Now you're going to have a session with her. She's going to say things to you that you didn't even know anybody else knew. And then it's going to be even more affirmative for you too. But really, it's a tool. So I know that I'm going to be using your services for a really long time, because it's like every time when you come, I mean, it really was one of the most profound readings I've ever had. I mean, it was like, I just was like, I have never cried so much during a reading ever.
Oh, well, yeah. And I'm so thankful to be the vessel that love and light comes through, because the only thing I can take credit for is spending a lot of time learning the language. But the stuff that comes through, that's not me, you know, that's Glenda the Good Witch. That's love and light. And I'm just the instrument that the song comes through.
You had to have an asking for that too. So on that level, it is you. It is your soul that decided to do this with all the other souls that, you know, have this beautiful gift. Because imagine a world where we weren't pushing against the grain, where we were hiding and not doing this and not using our gifts and not helping other people. The people on this earth would just have more of a hellish time than they're having. So you really are the light bringer, like the light bearer. And I really am in so much gratitude to you and for you.
Oh, you're so sweet. You know, I for a very long time I was pushing against the grain, and I wasn't living in my purpose. You know, I had a you know, really restricted, religious, violent childhood, and then I left home immediately as soon as I turned 18. And then I had 2 children by the time I was 21 years old. And then I lived under the poverty level for 10 years. And then I was a single mom. And it was all about the hustle to provide for my daughters. You know, it was hard. It was living for somebody else. And it was doing work that I wasn't meant to do. But I thought that I had to do it, because how else was I going to put food on the table? But the whole time I always had this love affair with astrology and tarot. It was always in me. And I knew, like, if I could do anything in the world, it would be astrology and tarot. But I always thought, well, that's not possible. Maybe someday when I retire, and I don't need to go to do a boring 9 to 5 job that I just can't stand anymore. And so things happened. My girls left. By the time I was 40 years old, I was an empty nester. They were in school. I was on. And so my life started changing. And I started realizing all the ideas that we have around scarcity and abundance and security, for many of us, need a severe upgrade.
Yes.
A severe upgrade. And anyways, situations led to eventually me selling everything that I had in California, San Diego, and giving up a really good job. It was prestigious. It was a good job, but it wasn't for me. It wasn't a good job for me, for my soul. And just moving down here where I am now in central Mexico and throwing myself into the astrology and the tarot full time. And it was a little while after then that you reached out to me, and it's like you have a sensor, this spiritual compass that finds the women that will belong to your group as you elevate women and push them forward into their purpose.
I know. I love it. I really, really love it. And the beautiful thing too that I realized is that all of us have such similar stories. Like when I hear you talking about your life, that's exactly how my life was. And it really, once you do give up that 9 to 5, or you do give up that job, or that you're doing the thing that you're not meant to be doing, and you do dive into what it is that you're meant to be doing, it may be scary, but things start to open up for you in ways that you couldn't even have imagined when you are connected to spirit like that. So
it's like you have to take that leap of faith, and then you're rewarded for it. Then people start coming. It's like the universe is saying, okay, are you serious? Like, show me. And then you do it, and then things start coming into your field. You attract the people that you need to see, and it just starts working. But you have to make that first step.
You do. I also know too, when you talk about severe upgrade, like you definitely have to do the internal work. It's like, it took me literally probably 10, 20 years to flush all that old out to come to this place that I'm in now. When if I would have known about all these things that I could do, like the hypnotherapy and the NLP and the reprogramming and the Reiki Theta and all this stuff, it would have been fast forwarded like that, which is why I'm like, oh my gosh, I can see how much progress I've made even just over the last 1.5 years, 2 years. I mean, astronomical strides. I mean, things that are, people say that can't be done. I mean, I went from, little over $100,000 a year to well over 800,000, and it just continued within a year, so it's like things that are people like, that can't be done. Your business only grows 25%. I'm like, I'm literally on like a 200% increase consistently because I am doing this work, because I am doing what I came here to do, what I'm meant to do. And because I did the internal reprogramming so I could be in alignment with that and not be a victim of my past or my wounding.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. When people say you can only grow 25% a year, or they're talking about what has been and what's the past for them. But you do what you believe you can do, what you're capable of doing. That's why you have to have this vision. That's why you have to dream it. So then you can live it. Yeah.
And the connection with spirit, and allowing and having that faith and trust in that energy, even when it looks like it's darkness all around you. That's like the tipping point, when it's like you have all these dreams and it seems like things aren't happening, and still staying in faith. And then it's like the drizzle, and then it's just the downpour of amazing things happening. And it just continues as long as you stay on the path. So I'm so happy that we're doing this together, because it's so fun.
Yeah. And, it's also the ability to stay with the discomfort, because the discomfort is leading you to alignment. It's leading you there. So sometimes people are like, oh, I can't do this. I don't feel good. So they medicate themselves, or, with Netflix or prescription or whatever. And it's the ability to stay with that discomfort, knowing that this discomfort is helping you to change those things that need to be changed, so that you can be in alignment with your purpose.
It's also interesting to me how many people are actually afraid to change. They're like afraid to be this amazing, beautiful woman who's experiencing her soul's purpose because it's unfamiliar. So they'll make all these excuses and they'll self-sabotage, like, oh, I can't do it because I don't have enough time, or oh, I can't do it because, you know, I don't have the money, or whatever it is, rather than being like, you know what, the time and the money makes itself known when I step into spirit. And then allowing it to unfold. It's like they become addicted to that part of their identity that is stuck in the trauma, and they don't realize that all those excuses are their ego, not their heart. So I really, really want to teach women how to listen to their heart space and not, right?
Yeah, exactly. When people are afraid to change, it's their ego screaming out in terror. It's not their heart. You know, it's their ego.
Yeah, and then the ones that actually do jump, even in spite of the fear, and make the change, they're the ones that are like, I am so glad I did that. Like, so glad I did it. It was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Right. And sometimes, you know, the universe is saying, course correct. And, you know, we're like, no, I'm too comfortable here, or that's too scary.
Yeah,
So then something happens, like a car accident or a layoff from a job, or something that forces them to course. So it's like, you can go easy or you can go hard.
That's what happened to me too, because I got into learning how to manifest windfalls. So I was manifesting like $10,000, $20,000 a month at my other place of employment. And so I was like, yes, I can do this. And then I'm like, no, it just kept knocking. Randina, you're supposed to be doing this. You're supposed to be doing this. You're supposed to be doing this. And I'm like, no, I'm making all this money. And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, well, we're just going to take it from you. So then it's like, oh shit, I have like $2 left and I'm like 3 months behind my rent. What am I going to do? So then I was like, I had to do it, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did, because it's been the best thing ever.
Yeah, and so are a lot of other people.
Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging that.
Yeah.
So I love your journey. I love the story. I love what you do. It's amazing. You are such a beautiful soul, beautiful presence, beautiful woman. Like, you could you know, it is true when they say the eyes are the window to the soul. Like, I really am so glad that I get to see you live, because your eyes are just so beautiful. They really remind me of my own mother. So it's like so loving, and I just thank you for that.
Thank you. That's so kind. Well, I can be your Glenda Good Witch anytime.
Okay. Okay, awesome. So let's see, does anybody have any questions for Juanita? Hi, Sheila. So if anybody has any questions for her, Annalisa, hi, at all, or for me, let's see, maybe on Facebook. Sometimes it takes like a delay before people will be able to ask the questions. Oh wait, here there. Annalisa said, so good, thank you both. Oh, Nancy said, I'm terrified. Nancy, it's okay. You don't have to be scared. It's good.
And you know what? You can be terrified and take your chair with you.
Yeah, and then you realize that there really was nothing to be terrified about. And also I found too that right when you're on the brink of something amazing is when all the fear will come up, and it will show up like terror, because it's rising to the surface so that you can let it go.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Deb said, how did you know that tarot astrology was always in you? You said it was always in you. How did you know?
I was always compelled. So even as a little child, I like named myself Esmeralda because I thought it was like a fortune teller name, you know, like a gypsy fortune teller. And I was always drawn to that section in the library, and I was reading Linda Goodman's Sun Signs, and I was just very enchanted by the esoteric. And then when I discovered tarot cards and I discovered astrology, I was like, this is it. You know, I was just felt so drawn to it. And I think that tells us a little bit about ourselves. If there's something that you're really drawn to, whether it's dancing or, you know, salmon or whatever it is, you have some sort of work that you need to do that fulfills your soul with that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I know for me too, it's like there's little pieces of it. It's what you're called to, what you're inspired by, what you're obsessed with, what you love. And also I realized that it was a tipping point for me when I did have my astrological chart read in person. Like it was like, oh my gosh, because in my chart it was father wounding and then mother death, and you know, because I have a lot of cancer in my chart, and then it was, you know, being the rainbow bridge for other people. And so it really gave you the pieces of the puzzle that, you know, and you also can do a tarot astrology reading around career period, around soul purpose period, so that you can really get clear on that too, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you can get very specific. You could spend, you know, a whole day on just career or relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, because it really will tell you exactly what it is. A lot of times what happens in the human condition is we get so stuck in the third dimension, the human consciousness, that we're only looking at this level. We can't see anything else because we're just trying to survive. So our brains are in that survival mode, and that's all we're going to look at is what's going to be the next thing that's going to hurt us. So we stay in protective mode. We're not really listening to spirit. Our human self has become our dominant part of our personality rather than our soul being that dominant part of our personality. So what I found is on the healing journey, once you go through and you begin to heal those trigger points, those wounding points, those pain points, and come back into alignment with your soul so that it can come through, you don't question anymore. You just know, you just have this knowing and understanding, and things just unfold for you in such a beautiful way. So that's been my experience too on the healing journey.
Yeah, you begin to trust the process, you know. So sometimes, and it's like for me, it's always important to honor everyone's experience. And so I know from my own experience, when I was just hustling and trying to provide for my girls and everything, I wasn't allowing my spirit to talk to me. There was just no space. I was too constricted, right? But then you get to this point of development, kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. After you have like your basic needs met, you're able to then start allowing a spiritual purpose to unfold in you. And then
you clear. You have to be clear. You can't be in fight or flight. You're left brain logic only when you're in survival mode. Like when you're stressed out, when you're like constantly wounded, when your mind's racing a million miles a minute about your relationships, about your money, about all that stuff, you can't hear the voice of spirit, because even if you did, you wouldn't even know that that's what it was, because you're so stuck in this wounded space that you're in protective mode. You can tell people that have extreme wounding because they're more in protecting their yin energy. They're more like, you know, leaned over. And I didn't even notice it with my own self, but even the videos of myself from working out from the very beginning, there's this one machine where it's like I have to stand like this and kind of press down my leg. Well, I was like this for the first part of it. And then when I started going to work on healing my heart chakra, because I'm calling in an amazing relationship, I had to heal those old wounding points. I started feeling my soul come through my heart even more, because I was no longer guarded. I didn't have the heart walls that were protecting me from being hurt again. I was able to open and to love more and to love people and not be afraid that I was going to be hurting. And so slowly my shoulders and my posture began to be upright. So you can tell when you have heart wounding if you're like this, if you're in that protective mode. Right. And I mean, that's just an indication that that healing needs to occur. And when you heal that space, then what you'll find is everything else starts unfolding for you too, because wherever you go, you take yourself with you. So we are the center of our universe. And when we heal this little part of us here, it affects everywhere. It affects all over. So it's just a beautiful space that we're in, you know, allowing ourselves to come here and do this again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's really interesting that you're so physical. I am too. And the body stores a lot of trauma, you know, and we inherit a lot of trauma. And so being able to work with the body, whether it's at a gym or hot yoga, sweating it out, or dancing and moving rhythmically, it's very medicinal to engage the body in the healing process.
It really is. It's like when you go and get a massage, random memories will be triggered because they're pushing out the energy of that certain spot. So you'd be like, well, I can't believe I was thinking that. And you really do store memories in your body. it's also why we have diseases in certain areas of our bodies too, because that's where the life force is cut off and where those memories are there. They're unprocessed emotion. So it just goes to being stored. I was thinking about that this morning. I'm glad that you brought that up. And also the whole like dancing is awakening that sacred feminine, right? I know a lot of women that I worked with that have had a lot of sexual trauma. They don't like to dance, right? They don't get into that. They're afraid to awaken that goddess. But then once that trauma is healed, they're like in it, like flowing in it. And that sacred feminine is just flowing through them. And then they're receiving all the things that they want. They're receiving the wealth, they're receiving the men, they're receiving everything that they want to have because they have opened that feminine opening. That is like the greatest gift that you can ever give anyone. And I believe it's the greatest gift to the world, because when the woman is healed, then the men will be healed too, because you know, they say when mama's not happy, no one's happy. That's because the woman is the matriarch.
Yes. Yes. The woman's pain relates all the way back down to Mother Earth.
Yeah.
Our first mother.
Yeah.
Back to the massage. The first time I came to Mexico, when I was here for 4 years, and I worked in a convent with battered women, doing what I call compassionate touch therapy, reconnecting women back through to their bodies that had experienced trauma, abuse, violence, sexual trafficking, all these things. And so our goal was to have a full body massage, but sometimes these women couldn't even be touched. So I would just sit with them. And as I worked on them and I saw the cigarette burns and the bottle smashes and the glass, and their bodies were just a terrain of abuse, they would cry and I would cry, and it would release from their bodies, and the trauma was releasing because there was a witness. That's a little bit what astrology does. You have a person and I am the witness, and we work on the terrain of the body, your celestial map. So it was a very, very healing time. And by working with their bodies, these women were then able to open up and start speaking about their abuse, because before they wouldn't speak. They were quiet. And at the same time, I learned how to salsa dance. So I learned how to move my hips. So it was a very healing time, and it was all really coming back to the body, feeling the body, having the body witnessed, and then feeling the Kundalini energy and the life force energy move through the body in joy.
Yeah. I love that. It's interesting that you bring that up, because a few days ago I was in meditation and I was like, why am I so compelled to heal the suffering of women? Why am I so compelled to do this? It's really intense work. And so as I got out of meditation, I just decided I was going to pick up my phone, and I don't even know why, but I opened up Kindle and it was on this book, and it's called Shakti Rising is the name of the book. And it was talking all about the point in time when women actually were the ones that discovered yoga, that were channeling yoga, that were using yoga to get in harmony with the moon, with their menstrual cycles, to process emotion. And then they went and they taught the men how to do it. And then at some point it flipped, and the men then banished the women from being able to do it, because they realized how powerful they were when they were in these states of being and teaching this, and they wanted to take the power. So it's like they overcame the woman and then cast her out, and she wasn't allowed to do yoga anymore. And I just started crying hysterically. It was like I was crying the coldest tears ever. And cold is like really old traumatic memories. So I was like, felt like I was crying for all of women throughout all of history because of that experience. And I just couldn't understand, why would she agree to that? Like, why would she allow, if the goddess is so powerful and all pervading, and in the Shakti life force is the creation of this energy, why would she allow herself to be, become submissive and to be, taken and oppressed and all of this? And so what I got from that was, because it's the journey back to love. It's the journey through the darkness back to love, to rising again. It's like the phoenix rising from the ashes after that happens. So it's kind of like the hero's journey, even in our own lives, when we go through traumas and we come out on the other end and we're healed from that. And then we're just powerful and helping other people to cross that terrain, like you said too. It's so soul fulfilling, right? Like even just hearing you tell that story is like, brings me to tears, and it's just really, really amazing. So I think that that's what it is about.
Last week I picked up a book by Vicki Noble, and I think it's the same book that you just mentioned.
Maybe. Does it have the Callie on the front?
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool.
I can't put it down. It is so good.
It is really
Yeah,
good.
it is really good. And in the preface, she writes that this book came out because when she first got together with her husband, they fought for 3 years about the definition of the ultimate feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And his idea of the feminine was like soft and like just beautiful. Like you think of old-fashioned movie stars,
Yeah,
and
like a
no.
girl or something. Yeah.
Yeah, she's like, that's not me. I'm a warrior. I've got fire in my blood. And so they went back and forth of what the ideal feminine is. And so then she went back in time and started researching, all the stories of the feminine and how the feminine has been repressed and Shakti energy rising, everything. It's such a good book.
I know the profound thing for me that I read at that same point in time about the yoga, it was like right before that, was how all of the Colosseums and all of the temples, like all of they were all goddess temples that then were like taken away. And then when Zeus and all the gods came in, that they actually took over, but they were goddess temples from the beginning. And then the men took out the goddess and then made it god temples, but they weren't god temples. They started as goddess temples. And even in all of Greek mythology, Athena was like the rising queen, and she was then made a subservient role. Like she was then gonna serve a masculine god, when it was like the goddess from the beginning.
Yeah. And also about how menstruation, she talks about women, when they would have their periods, they would all sit together and the men were kind of kept out. And the women, this was their time of coming together. It was a very sacred and holy time where they would plan and they would strategize and they would all be together. And then because there was so much power there, it later got turned around. What, she's unclean now, a woman during her period, avoid her, and it became a thing to be ashamed of. So it's like taking all of these roots as to what it used to be and like where it is now. And I guess it's, I don't know why it's gone this way either. And that's the question, like, why has it come this far? But I think it is to return back to that.
Because that's what's happening. I mean, even if you look at astrologically right now, what is this all? This is all about the whole feminine coming back into life. You can see it even within our political system. You can see it with humanity and consciousness, the whole Me Too thing. It's like women standing up and taking their power back. It's like, no, we will not be subdued anymore. We will not be taken over anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And all the dark stuff coming up from the bottom and being shown to the light, and women standing in their power or starting to stand in their power.
Yeah. So this is also why I say when we do this for ourselves, we are doing it for everyone.
Absolutely.
It's like Together We Rise is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was always like, maybe I shouldn't be asking the question why so much, but there was just part of me that really wanted to know. And I can see, even in my own life experience, even in my own traumatic, abusive relationship that I was in, even my relationship with my father, it was like, I needed that to know how powerful I was. I needed that to stand up and push against and say no more for myself, so that I could have that fire to be able to do this for other women too. Mm-hmm. So there has to be a reason that something so powerful would choose to go dormant and then come back.
Yeah. And I think asking questions is one of the most important things that you can do. Not trying to find the answer, but asking the questions. And the poet Rilke says, ask the questions so that someday you might live the answer. So you find eventually you're actually living the answer to the question that you've been asking this whole time.
Yeah. And if you also look at my life story, like my mother she was pretty much killed, domestic violence situation. And I had to witness that entire thing. From the beginning of time, it was like a woman, right? Like a woman being abused and hurt and emotionally destroyed. So that is also why it's so near and dear to me, And I feel like that's why I'm compelled to help so many women in the world, because I do know that there is an answer. I do know that you can reinvent yourself and you can heal your life and you can become all you came here to be, the most powerful version of yourself that you can ever even dream of. So it's like the pieces come together. So for Deb, who asked that question, like the pieces come together when you're on the path. So just keep on the path, because it'll all make sense at some point.
It does. Exactly. They do. It's like we're a giant puzzle, and everything that's happened to us is a piece of that puzzle. And eventually, if you're on your path, you realize why you've been given that piece.
Especially when you learn that you are magical, that you are a master manifester, that you do have alchemic powers. It's like so cool, right? When you learn that like it's okay to be mystical. It's okay to be in your magic. It's okay to use your power to create what it is that you want to create and experience in alignment with the divine and all that beautiful energy too, as a woman, because as women, we are very, very powerful.
Deb says it's a long path. I like to think, you know, I used to run marathons, and I would run a marathon, and like 13 miles in, I'd be like, why am I doing this again? Like, what was I thinking? And, you know, and towards the end, you finally get to 26.2 and you cross the line. And for me, the first thing I would think of like is, I want to do it again. Like, I know what I'll do different next time. And for Deb, it's a long path. You know, I think sometimes our lives, this pilgrimage feels like a marathon, you know, and we're in it and we're like, oh my God, it's so long. This is so hard. I don't know if I can do it. I want to drop out. And the moment we return back to source or die, we're like, get me back in a human body again. I know what I can do different this time. You know, I've got it down. I understand it. So it's like it is a long path, but this is what we signed up for. You know, this is what we signed up for, and we came with gifts to offer, and we're evolving our souls, and we're bringing others up with us all along the way.
I know there's like a sense of responsibility. Like once you discover this information, you have to. That's why I always tell people that come into my circle, I was like, you realize there's no going back. Like you can't go back, you already know. Yeah. And also about the long path is when you're on the other side of the darkness, when you're on the other side of the wounding, it goes so fast. It's true when they say time flies when you're having fun. Like it does go fast and you're enjoying it. You're actually enjoying, you want it to be longer so that it's like doesn't move so fast, because you are enjoying your life. You're enjoying every single day. So you will get there. You just have to know that that's the path that you're headed on, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Juanita. This conversation has been so beautiful. It's definitely lit a fire in my soul. I love that we can talk to each other about this kind of stuff.
Me too.
It's crazy that we're reading the same book. Like it's so amazing.
That is so weird.
I love it. It's a really good book. Yeah. Okay, so we've been on for about 45 minutes now, so that's good. That's a really good class. I'm really excited. So everyone, if you're on this, I will be sending out the recording later as soon as it uploads. And I thank everyone who was on here, and Juanita especially, I thank you so much for joining with me, and I can't wait for the course because it's going to be so amazing to be able to do this together in such a powerful, profound level. So
wonderful. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.